The World That Lost One. Prologue, Episode 1. The ritual took place on the first day of the month, in the square at the border between Stain 12 and Sanctum 12. The stone floor had been washed early that morning. Dampness still clung to the shallow seams between the slabs. The surface lay even, carefully kept. Nothing here suggested neglect. The tall stone wall stood just beyond the square, its two ends meeting there. On one side, the road led toward Sanctum 12, one of many such districts across the kingdom, a place of order under the crown, where only the worthy were permitted to live. On the other side, the wall curved inward, sealing into a circle. It enclosed Stain 12, where the cast out were sent for crimes that stained Sanctum 12. Their descendants were born into it. The square was the only break in the circle. One gate faced a sanctum, the other open toward a stain. Both were unlocked only once each month. Supplies passed through from the sanctum. So did the children of the stain, brought here at 15 for the ritual. There were 58 of them this time, all born and raised in Stain 12. None had ever stood inside the square before, nor would they again. The children stood in a single line, exactly where they were told. No one spoke. No one tested the distance. Their stillness came less from fear than from awe. The order, the tidiness, the care of the place resembled nothing they were used to. The priest wore white. The fabric was heavy. A tall hat sat precisely in place. His robe brushed the floor as he walked. Nothing about him invited questions. He set a worn book upon the table and opened it with care. 4 gems lay on the table, black, white, red, and green. No child in the square needed to be told what they were. Water, metal, fire, wood. Metal gave rise to water, water to wood, wood to fire. Nothing gave rise to metal. Fire gave rise to nothing. Water overcame fire. Fire overcame metal. Metal cut down wood. Nothing overcame water. Wood overcame nothing. Every child in the kingdom faced the gems once in their life. At 15, they were brought before them. The heavenly gods chose the element each soul would bear. From that moment, a life was already half written. Yet there was another possibility, one that everyone in the square avoided thinking about. Sometimes none of 4 elements responded to a child in the ritual. Those children were called the elementless, souls abandoned by the heavenly gods. Their very existence was the gravest of sins. At 15, if no element answered, they were taken and cast into the pits. There were no exceptions. At the center of the square, the priest began the ritual. He lit the incense, one stick at a time, and set them into a bronze burner at the center of the table, covered in thick white cloth. Smoke rose and dispersed into the open air. The priest moved with practiced precision. He had performed it on the first day of every month for 30 years. A master stood some distance from the altar, dressed in black. A red sash crossed his waist, marking the fire element. His posture did not change as the smoke thickened around him. Fireborn who proved themselves were taken to the master academies. There, they learned the art of command, talismans, incantations, formations, and the binding of things that did not answer to the living. The highest among them became masters. 2 rows of uniformed zombies stood between the altar table and the children. Each bore a talisman on the forehead, hanging down the center of the face. At times, it stirred in the breeze, exposing glimpses of the skin beneath. Zombies did not move unless commanded. The bell rang 8 times. The priest spoke the prayer. The words were familiar. All the children had heard them before in the doctrine schools. Here, they carried weight. When the last line ended, he lifted his gaze to the head of the line. "Proceed, kid." The girl stepped forward. The priest asked her name and birthday. She answered. He glanced at the book. His right hand moved out of sight. The white gem on the table trembled. "Metal," the priest said. The girl was shown to the 2 exits. They stood opposite each other. One opened toward the Sanctum district. The other led back to the Stain. The space between them was not large, yet it felt wider than the square itself. The girl stopped. She had known this moment was coming. Everyone did. The rule was simple, repeated long before the day of the ritual. To enter the correct gate was to leave everything behind. To turn back was to remain, without advancement. There were no hidden conditions. Still, she did not move. The white gem on the table had already gone still. Nothing marked her now except the memory of its vibration. She looked toward the Sanctum gate first. From where she stood, she could see only its beginning. Metal led to the sacred academies. She imagined the academy buildings she had heard about, the lecture halls, the discipline, the usefulness. Those chosen by metal served the heavenly gods. The highest became priests, though never women. The most capable were kept in the temples, second only to the army of the divine waterborn. Then she turned slightly, just enough to look back. She could not see her home through the wall, but she pictured it easily. Bodies left in the street every day. The crowded, dim, damp house her family lived in. An empty belly, day after day. The cold settling into her bones in winter. Yet the warmth of her youngest brother against her skin. The way her father avoided her gaze whenever the ritual was mentioned. Like every child in the Stain, she had been taught there was only one path out. That blood was only blood. That survival was reason enough. Loyalty to the crown over blood promised a future that did not require apology. She had told herself that leaving would be easy. Standing there, she felt the weight of the choice more than she had expected. No one spoke. The priest waited. The master did not intervene. The pause was deliberate. It set an example. It made the next choices easier. In his experience, it never failed. She pressed her lips together. Her hands clenched, then loosened. She took one step toward the Sanctum gate. She stopped again, as if testing whether her own body would resist her. It did not. She walked forward and entered the gate. She did not look back. The square returned to stillness. Next, the priest said.
End of episode 1. She was only the first. 57 children still waited. The ritual had only begun. But not every name would be answered by a gem. What are the pits, and who will be taken there? Subscribe to continue the story.